Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a literal David versus Goliath story playing out right now inside the world's most advanced multi-billion-dollar data centers. We usually think of these massive facilities as these pristine temples of high tech, endless rows of flashing servers, powering everything from global finance to the latest AI models. But keeping those digital behemoths running actually means battling a constant, invisible enemy, and that enemy is immense heat. So we're going to look at the incredibly ingenious, totally unsung hero that literally stops the internet from melting down.
Think about it for a second. What actually protects a billion-dollar data center from catastrophic overheating? You'd probably guess some insanely complex AI algorithms, right? Or maybe some futuristic liquid cooling tech. High-tech problems demand high-tech solutions. But actually, scratch that. The reality is totally different. The real savior against this threat is shockingly low-tech. It's a mechanical marvel, just humming along in the background, completely unseen by the software engineers. And that brings us to our unsung hero, the Automatic Tube Cleaning System, or ATCS. Out in the field, a lot of folks just call it a sponge ball cleaning system, which honestly hits the nail on the head. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's a mechanical setup that uses tiny, simple sponge balls to continuously scrub the inside of condenser tubes in water-cooled chillers. It's just this tiny, simple object doing a massive, critical job, scrubbing away threats before they can take down our digital infrastructure. The hidden cooling threat. To really appreciate the hero here, we first have to understand the microscopic villain it's fighting.
So, in a water-cooled system, the cooling water is constantly dragging in microscopic dust, impurities, and minerals like calcium and magnesium. Over time, these stick to the tubes, creating a buildup that facility managers call scale. And what's wild here is just how little of this stuff it takes to cause absolute havoc. We're talking about a mere 0.3 millimeters. That is a tiny fraction of a millimeter thick, but it acts like this unwanted thermal blanket, trapping heat and stopping the tubes from effectively cooling the water. To put that into perspective, that barely there 0.3 millimeter layer absolutely destroys the chiller's heat exchange efficiency, dropping it by a massive 10 to 15%. And when efficiency drops, the chiller's compressors have to basically go into overdrive just to compensate. They become massively overloaded, sucking up vastly more electricity. For a data center running 24/7, 365 days a year, a 10 to 15% efficiency drop means power bills skyrocketing by hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's a massive hit to the facility's bottom line. Inside the ATCS cycle, so how exactly do we fight back without slowing down operations?
The system actually uses the chiller's own natural water pressure to run this continuous, high-speed, four-step loop. Step 1 is injection. It literally pushes these sponge balls, which are just a tiny bit bigger than the tube's diameter, right into the cooling water inlet. Step 2 is cleaning. The immense water pressure forces those balls through thousands of condenser tubes, gently scrubbing the walls clean before that scale can harden. Step 3 is catching. At the exit pipe, there's a specialized strainer that traps the balls while letting the water flow right through. And finally, step 4 is recirculation, routing those balls back to a collector so they can be fired again. And this whole cycle just repeats totally automatically, dozens of times a day.
The real genius, though, is in the hardware itself. First, you have these specialized sponge balls. We're not talking about your average kitchen sponge here. They're engineered from specific rubber or polyurethane materials to clean without scratching the tubes. If a facility has exceptionally tough scale, they can even coat these balls with a highly abrasive material called Carborundum. Next, there's the hydrodynamic strainer. This is absolutely crucial because it has to perfectly catch every single ball, but do it without blocking the massive flow of cooling water. And rounding out the whole shebang is the collector and control panel where the magic gets timed and programmed.
Why data centers need it. Now, let's pivot to why this specific system is an absolute non-negotiable for modern heavy-load data centers. You see, standard commercial office buildings, they can usually afford to just pause operations in the winter for an annual deep clean. They shut off the chillers, and workers literally shove metal brushes down the tubes. But for a data center running ultra-high workloads around the clock, no way. Shutting down a massive chiller for days is way too risky. The heat buildup would be catastrophic. The ATCS completely solves this because it cleans while the machinery is running at 100% capacity. It guarantees true zero downtime operation. And keeping those tubes perfectly spotless does a lot more than just save on the electricity bill. It prevents what engineers ominously call lethal crevice corrosion. If scale builds up unevenly, forming thick patches, it triggers this terrifying chemical reaction right underneath the scale. And that reaction can literally eat holes straight through incredibly expensive metal condenser tubes. By continuously sending these sponge balls through, the ATCS ensures uniform water quality and stops localized scale dead in its tracks, drastically extending the life of the equipment.
Maintenance and management tips. Because as great as this is, the system isn't just pure magic. Facility managers really have to act as the sidekick here, and there are two critical management routines they must follow. Number one, monitor ball wear. These sponge balls are constantly squeezing through tight metal tubes, so naturally, they wear down, tear, or shrink over time. If a ball shrinks too much, it just floats lazily through the pipe without actually scrubbing anything, so operators have to regularly check their size and swap in fresh ones. Number two, track ball loss. If that hydrodynamic strainer acts up, balls can escape the loop and get flushed right out into the external cooling tower. So checking daily recovery counts on the control panel is essential. If you shoot 100 balls in and only 90 come back, well, you've got a problem you need to look into immediately.
Which leaves us with a fascinating final thought to wrap up this explainer. We live in an era that is just obsessed with the bleeding edge of tech, right? Artificial intelligence, quantum computing, massive global networks. Yet, despite all of that, the survival of our most advanced digital infrastructure still completely relies on the gritty, relentless analog work of tiny rubber spheres. So the next time you're marveling at the sheer speed of the cloud, maybe ask yourself, who's keeping an eye on the sponge balls? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and we will catch you next time.